Welcome to NTD News Today. I'm Stephania Cox. Here are today's top stories. The U.S. Army's 250th anniversary parade proceeded down through downtown Washington on Saturday, with protests casting a shadow on the celebration. NTD's Melina Weiskup brings us you the sounds and sights from the heart of the festivities at the National Mall. And we dig deep on the historic U.S.-China trade deal with expert panelists to discuss what it means for American businesses and consumers. Could you be straining your eyes without realizing it? Here's how to discover your true lens prescription and give yourself more vision relief. Today's Father's Day, and what better gift to give him than helping him stay healthy? We've got advice and tips.
This is NTD News Today, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
A military parade rolled through the streets of downtown Washington on Saturday to celebrate the U.S. Army's 250th anniversary, though the celebrations were marred by a day of protests. Here's that story.
President Donald Trump's long-sought military parade rolled through the streets of downtown Washington on Saturday in celebration of the U.S. Army's 250th anniversary.
Every other country celebrates their victories. It's about time America did too.
But the event, which coincided with Trump's 79th birthday, was marred by a day of violence and discord. From New York to Chicago to Los Angeles, hundreds of thousands of Americans marched in protest of Trump's actions while in office. And earlier in the day, a gunman assassinated a Democratic lawmaker and wounded another in Minnesota. The parade kicked off earlier than expected due to thunderstorms forecast in the Washington area, with tanks, armored personnel carriers, and artillery. It's an unusual sight in the U.S. where such displays of military are rare. Trump watched the proceedings from an elevated viewing stand behind bulletproof glass.
We the people! We the people!
Many of the protests against him earlier in the day took place under the theme No Kings, asserting that no individual is above the law. Actor Mark Ruffalo was at the protest in New York.
We have a king and his court and his beige henchmen, and they're trampling on our rights and our laws and our freedoms.
The demonstrations were largely peaceful and marked the largest outpouring of opposition to Trump's presidency since he returned to power in January. The situation was more tense in Los Angeles, though. Police used flashbang grenades and tear gas to push back protesters.
Amid protests and unrest in parts of the country, the U.S. Army marking its 250th anniversary with those festivities on the National Mall, NTD's Melina Weiskup was at the scene.
Thousands of patriotic Americans lined the National Mall to join morning festivities as service members brought U.S. Army pride to the nation's capital.
Happy birthday, Army!
That's a big milestone. It's really big. So to be able to see how far we've come from where we used to be as a military to where we are today, it's 100% worth the celebration.
Bright and early, servicemen showcased their strength with an Army fitness competition. The kids got some training of their own with climbing and rock walls.
It was just a sea of service members in their ACUs and their uniforms, and it was just really, really cool to see how many people serve and just be able to recognize them for their time. And
folks got a chance to interact with soldiers, Army astronauts, NFL representatives, and Medal of Honor recipients.
When you walk around and meet all the soldiers out here, we all come from different walks of life, all very different backgrounds, and so coming out here showing that we have a shared purpose and common goal is just really great, and seeing the team out here putting their best foot forward and just showing the public what we have to offer makes me really proud.
Army members emphasize the importance of bringing their hard work behind the scenes into the light, inspiring and instilling the next generation with the pride that comes with protecting our nation.
I hope that maybe people are a little bit more confident in the Army.
A sentiment echoed by an Iraq veteran who brought his family along to soak in the festivities.
to celebrate this on the 250th anniversary is pretty significant for me and from my friends, my fellow soldiers that I was in Iraq with.
And people here at the festival get a unique opportunity of getting up close and personal with this military equipment.
I came in, I saw helicopters, I wanted to go over there. I saw a bunch of infantrymen on the way. And then I met this special forces guy from my hotel on the way here, and he gave me a challenge going. And then that was really exciting.
Helicopters, military firearms, grenade launchers, and a military howitzer, all on display for engaging opportunities to learn what it's like to handle gear that's used on the battlefield.
There's so many things. There's over 250 jobs, and it can be great opportunities for you. You can get college out of it. You meet best friends I've ever had are all from the Army. Just how awesome of an opportunity it can be.
Those at the event emphasize the importance of recognizing and respecting the role the U.S. Army plays in protecting our freedoms here at home.
Everyone should be here. It doesn't matter if Trump or Kamala, whoever you voted for. I feel everyone should be here to support our troops because they're the reasons why we have our freedoms.
But if you see some of the faces here, I mean, they're the age of my kids and some of them grandkids, in fact. And I see their heart and their love. Gonna tear up. Love for this nation, so I appreciate it.
After the festival, tanks and thousands of soldiers will march through the streets of Washington, D.C. The parade will start at 6:30 this evening, right next to the Lincoln Memorial. They'll head down Constitution Avenue toward the Vietnam Veterans Memorial and pass by the Constitution Gardens. The parade will then cut through the National Mall between the Ellipse and Washington Monument before ending near the National Museum of African American History and Culture. Helicopters and warplanes will fly overhead. Some 200,000 people are expected to attend. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Melina Weisskopf, NTD News.
Next, NTD's Kevin Hogan and Tiffany Meyer walk us through the timeline that built America's fighting force.
The U.S. Army, from colonial patriots to modern warriors, has defended liberty at home and abroad for 250 years.
Its legacy is built on valor and honor.
Kevin, let's march through this proud history, starting with independence from Great Britain.
Yeah, it was 1775 when the Continental Army was born and the Revolutionary War started. The British had the most powerful army in the world. They had warm cottages in cities, whereas the Americans, many of them were just volunteer troops and some just farmers, and they were camped out in hand-built huts in the woods enduring brutal winters, but they won, and that's because they had the grit and tactical resilience. They believed in the cause of liberty, and it was this man, George Washington, the commander-in-chief of the Continental Army, that led Americans to decisive victory. Here he's famously seen crossing the Delaware River, and it was that courage and bravery that would define the service in the centuries that followed, Tiff.
And then comes, of course, the War of 1812, which inspired the Star-Spangled Banner. This conflict is also known as the Second War of Independence.
Yes, and it was this flag that was flown over Fort McHenry in the pivotal Battle of Baltimore. And the defending Army soldiers were outnumbered 5-1 when the British Navy pummeled the fort all night with over 1,500 exploding mortar shells and rockets. And it was the rockets' red glare that allowed Francis Scott Key to see this flag and know that the British hadn't taken the fort. Thus his poem, which became the lyrics to our national anthem.
And speaking of Home of the Brave, the Civil War introduced the Medal of Honor. Soldiers fought valiantly here in part to end slavery, the preservation of the Union, and of course, a war for freedom.
Yes, what you're looking at right here is a bronze tip of the 54th Massachusetts Infantry Regiment. It was one of the first black regiments to serve in the Civil War, and it led the charge on Fort Wagner outside Charleston, South Carolina. An African-American Army Sergeant, William Carney, saw the flag bearer being shot down, and he went to retrieve the flag, marched it forward, and planted it on the parapet despite multiple serious wounds. And for that valiant service, he won the Medal of Honor. And this war demonstrated that the Army was not just a force for defense, but also for justice and national renewal.
And then comes a shift marked by U.S. military intervention abroad, because in 1917, the U.S. entered World War I.
Yes, seeking more than just victory, President Woodrow Wilson said that the world must be made safe for democracy. In the major Meuse-Argonne offensive in France, Army Sergeant Earl Davis Gregory, shown right here, grabbed a rifle and a mortar shell, and he advanced alone ahead of the infantry, capturing a machine gun and 3 German soldiers, and then kept going, capturing a howitzer and entering a dugout, and single-handedly captured 19 more German soldiers. And it was his tactical brilliance and courage that earned him the Medal of Honor. And this victory cemented the American Army as a modern industrialized force capable of global engagement.
And from World War I, the U.S. emerged as a significant world power. Then came World War II. So much heroism here, Kevin, from the U.S. Army.
Oh, absolutely. This was a war for freedom over tyranny and fascism. The Army was indispensable in turning the tide. In the Battle of the Bulge, Brigadier General Anthony McAuliffe, shown right here, commanded the 101st Airborne. The Nazis had surrounded the Belgian town of Bastogne and had it under siege, and the Americans were outnumbered, they were inexperienced, battle fatigued, and low on supplies. Then the German commander gave McAuliffe a surrender ultimatum, and McAuliffe famously wrote back simply, "nuts." Then the bombing assault began. The Americans didn't give in, and this just showed that, this was just pure perseverance right here. And then General Patton right here, his tanks arrived, eventually lifted the siege. And here you see General Patton giving McAuliffe a Distinguished Service Cross for his heroism.
Now, the Korean War was not a clear win, but South Korea today enjoys freedom to this day as a result.
Yes, that's right. The American Army soldiers fighting the communists faced some hard-fought battles. These were intense combat conditions, many casualties, and brutal winters, but that did not stop them from maintaining discipline and adapting to a challenging and often shifting battlefield. It demonstrated that the Army was ready for the defense of democratic allies under international cooperation.
Now, along that same vein, the U.S. sought to contain the spread of communism in Southeast Asia in the Vietnam War. Some extraordinary courage here, Kevin.
Yeah, as you can see, soldiers fought in dense jungles, very rugged conditions, grueling terrain, under constant guerrilla threat of the Viet Cong. Then Army Staff Sergeant Melvin Morris breached enemy lines, retrieved a fallen soldier, and single-handedly took down a force that pinned down his battalion and made it back safely, even being shot 3 times. So this helped the Army understand unconventional warfare.
Now, decades later, the terrorist attack of 9/11 changed the world, and in connection with the Afghanistan war, 9/11 mastermind Osama bin Laden was taken out in Pakistan.
Yes, it was the Army's 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment that provided transport and cover for the SEALs who took him out. And they flew stealth-modified UH-60 Black Hawk helicopters similar to the one shown here, deep into hostile enemy territory with radio communications at a minimum at night, with no moonlight, using night vision goggles, flying over mountains, being undetected by radar. And it was the Army's ability that we see in this mission to carry out missions in which there is no margin for error.
And the U.S. Army, and specifically the 160th, still conducts counterterrorism operations in many countries around the world to this day.
Yes, and what we've shown you here are just a few notable examples of the American Army's prowess and their tradition of valiant and honorable service.
And all of this serves as the foundation for today's 250th anniversary parade.
And coming up, President Trump says the trade deal with China is secured, but talks aren't over yet. He says he's open to extending deadlines with other countries. And we dig deep on the historic U.S.-China trade deal with expert panelists to discuss what this means for American businesses and consumers. After this.
What if you could whiten your teeth by simply brushing your teeth? Now you can with Smile Actives, the teeth whitening breakthrough that safely gets your teeth white and keeps them white every day, just by brushing your teeth.
I never thought that whitening my teeth could be so easy. I just put the gel on the brush, the toothpaste on it, brush, and I can see my white teeth.
Simply add Smile Actives to any toothpaste, and our patented PolyClean technology activates into a powerful microfoam that penetrates into the enamel surface to safely lift and remove stains.
You need a simple way to whiten your teeth, without strips, without trays, without going to the dentist. And it was about time that a product was developed that you would be able to do that with just brushing.
And now, Smile Actives is even better with new Pro Whitening Gel with 33% greater whitening power, clinically shown to whiten teeth faster, up to 8 shades. 100% of users saw whiter teeth. On food stains, coffee and wine stains, even on veneers, crowns, and dentures.
I eat the blueberries, I drink the coffee, and I know that Smile Actives will keep my teeth white every day.
If you could use something so easy like Smile Actives to take yellow teeth to white teeth, why wouldn't you?
Why spend hundreds of dollars for whitening treatments at the dentist when now you can whiten your teeth with new Smile Actives Pro Whitening Gel every time you brush your teeth? Call or go to smileactives.com and for a limited time get new Pro Whitening Gel for just $24.95. Order in the next 5 minutes and buy one get one absolutely free for just $24.95. That's 2 for 1 and save 58%. We'll even include free shipping. Get your teeth whiter guaranteed or return it within 60 days for your money back.
I smile every day now.
The difference is literally night and day.
So now I'm always smiling, always choosing, because now my teeth are much whiter.
This offer is not available in stores, so call or click now before the special buy one get one free offer goes away.
Welcome back. President Donald Trump said Wednesday the trade deal with China is secured. He's also said he's open to extending the July 8th deadline for talks with other countries. Here's what we know so far.
Speaking to reporters on a trip to the theatre, he said the US was rocking on lots more agreements too. The president added he would be willing to extend the deadline for talks with other countries, but didn't think he'd have to.
I don't think we're going to have that necessity. We made a great deal with China. We're very happy with it.
Trump didn't offer more details and said some countries would simply be told what their deal was.
We're dealing with about 15 countries, but as you know, we have about 150 plus, and you can't do that. So we're going to be sending letters out in about a week and a half, 2 weeks.
The agreement with China came after 2 days of intense talks in London. That deal confirms an earlier agreement hammered out in May, which had seemed under threat over Beijing's curbs on the export of critical rare earth minerals. Those restrictions will now be lifted, with some US measures also eased. But many details remain unclear, and Washington is still imposing a 55% tariff on Chinese goods. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick said that rate was fixed and unalterable. Speaking earlier in Congress, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said Beijing needed to show it was open to fundamental change.
They're in the midst of a real estate downturn. Some may cause a crisis, and they are trying to export their way out of it rather than take domestic measures such as increasing consumption, dealing with banking problems, or dealing with the real estate crisis.
Bessent said the London deal did not mean Washington would lift curbs on the export of cutting-edge chips in return for the supply of rare earths. Market reaction to the agreement was muted, with many investors saying they wanted to see more detail.
Joining us now for analysis of the latest U.S.-China trade deal is economist and public policy analyst Michael Busler and mining expert David Argyle. Good to have you both with us today. Welcome. Let's start with you, Michael. The U.S.-China trade deal is finalized. Tariffs are at up to 55%, and China's agreeing to supply rare earths. How does all that impact U.S. inflation, consumer prices, overall economic growth?
So overall, this is a huge win for the U.S. China's economy, as Scott Besson pointed out, has serious problems. They have a real estate industry that's virtually collapsed, with home prices falling about 30%, and they have high unemployment now, mostly from the high tariffs for the last couple of months. So the U.S. Reached all of their goals. They wanted to primarily open up Chinese markets to U.S. manufacturers. That wasn't happening before because China put huge tariffs on American goods sent to China. That tariff will now be only 10%. That will open up Chinese markets, and U.S. manufacturing will increase to meet that. The U.S. also wants to restrict the amount of imports we get from China, and we do that by placing a tariff on it. Trump placed a 55% tariff, which should mean that some manufacturing is shifted back to the U.S. Now, ask me a question, isn't that going to be inflationary? Well, the answer is maybe a little bit. Why do I say that? So you take a look at something that a retailer buys from China for $5, sells for $10, a typical retail markup. Put a 55% tariff on that, it's about $2.75, some of which will get absorbed by China, some will get passed on to the consumer. So there will be some inflationary impact from those tariffs. I think it'll be relatively small. And I think also that it will encourage more U.S. manufacturers to start producing goods that will be now on par price-wise with the Chinese goods. The big thing, and I think David's about to talk about this, is the rare earth minerals that will now be sent to the U.S.
Yes, I do want to ask David on that point, because you've got the insights also from the manufacturing perspective, but specifically in terms of rare earths and magnets. How do you see this impacting the industry?
Stephanie, thanks for having me on, and I concur with Michael's comments. China has a few cards to play in a trade dispute and war with the United States. But what we have to remember is, in time of war, prepare for peace, and vice versa. So what has occurred initially back in April, May, President Trump reached a pause agreement with President Xi, provided that the flow of rare earth and rare earth magnet material continued to key industrial sectors in the United States. China withheld supply of what was promised under an obscure set of international legislation, which meant they imposed what's called dual use. They were suggesting that some of the magnets that they were going to ship to the United States would also have military purposes. And that was their reason for stopping the issuing of export licenses. The latest transaction with the United States guarantees, provided China lives up to its side of the deal, guarantees that key industrial sectors will continue to receive rare earth magnets and magnet material, and the United States didn't have to give up very much. But what will be a long-term gain for the United States is one of President Trump's key election premises, which is the reindustrialization. It has to be remembered that these magnet material and magnet facilities were in the industrial heartland. And step by step over the last 2 decades, they were encouraged under price pressure to move that facility and technology to China. And then China believed they had the tiger by the tail, so to speak, thinking that they could then control outcomes.
So considering this perhaps as a transitory phase, Michael, do you see that the U.S. is weighing up the long-term plan with the security risks that lawmakers across the aisle have identified China as being a security risk, and particularly in regard to these minerals. How do you see lawmakers weighing this up in this deal?
So there is a balance that has to be struck here, and that's what they're trying to find. The other issue is China makes agreements and doesn't keep their end of the bargain. And that happened the first deal that Trump made with them. And as is pointed out here, it's with some of the other agreements, they don't live up to what they're doing. So we have to somehow be able to enforce that. How we're going to do things like that, it is now in China's best interest to keep these deals intact, because China needs us much more than we need them. Although they have those rare minerals that we need, their economy exports nearly $500 billion to the U.S. annually. Now that's going to change, but they do rely on the U.S. So it is now in their best interest to maintain the agreements that they reach. Should they break some of the agreements, as they've done in the past, I think President Trump will react very, very harshly. And President Trump is not one to say, let's take a lot of time and negotiate things and have town halls. And he wants these deals settled immediately and finally, which is why he imposed such very large tariffs at one time in the beginning, up to 145% on Chinese goods. That clobbered their economy, as the U.S. Consumer wasn't going to pay those kind of prices, and forced China to come to a deal with the U.S. So as long as we can enforce and China maintains its agreement, this will be a good thing for the U.S. A lot of manufacturing will come back to the U.S., which is what we want to do. We still will be able to get these rare earth minerals, which is very important. And maybe the most important, it now opens up Chinese markets to U.S. manufacturers. Remember, there are 1.2 billion people in China, and the U.S. makes a lot of consumer goods very efficiently. We're also very efficient at producing food. Our agricultural industry, if they're allowed to sell into foreign markets like China, they'll be able to expand their output, and that will help grow the U.S. economy.
And David, considering the various regional conflicts around the world and China's entanglement in them in various ways, and as Michael mentioned, China's perhaps track record with not following through necessarily on all of their agreements, how urgent is it to build up another supply chain of these critical minerals, and how likely is it that we'll be able to fill the gap if it's pulled?
Good question, Stephanie. There are probably a dozen critical material supply chains that urgently need to have a non-Chinese, complete non-Chinese upstream, midstream, and downstream market. This administration is moving quickly to encourage the establishment of that, these non-Chinese involved critical material supply chains. This is what our company does. But if you look at where the focus should be first securing U.S. strategic needs of, as an example, magnets, before trying to look after magnets that are used in refrigerators or portable beach speakers. And I think this trade dispute highlights that the focus will be a strategic material supply chain, which can be built, depending upon which critical material, can be built and established within 18 months. And this is where strategically, I think China overplayed its rare earth stranglehold.
Okay.
Because they've pulled the same trade negotiating card in 2011, 2015, 2019, and now 2025, this administration is going to ensure that the United States has, for its strategic needs, which would be defense industrial base, nuclear industrial base, it will ensure that it has, completely independent of China, those raw materials. So it's very exciting, and a benefit will be the reindustrialization of the heartland of the United States.
Certainly a historic time here, both at home for manufacturing here and in all these trade deals, and the one with China specifically that we're looking at. Thank you both so much for helping us examine it today. Michael Busler and David Argyle. Good to speak with you.
My pleasure.
Thanks, Stephanie.
And coming up, discover how finding your true lens prescription can reduce eye strain and why many eye doctors avoid laser eye surgery themselves, according to a New York specialist. That story and more after this break.
Shenyun Creations, the streaming platform from Shenyun, featuring world-class dance, past programs, and all original music. Masterclasses, behind the scenes, comedy, and more. Explore shenyuncreations.com.
Say goodbye to harsh, bitter coffee and hello to a delicious, smooth brew. With specialty quality beans, expertly roasted in-house, you'll taste the difference with every sip. Fermented with a blend of 50 enzymes, Days Coffee delivers a rich brew like no other. Made with the highest grade specialty beans available, you're sure to taste the difference. Elevate your morning with Days Enzyme Fermented Coffee.
I don't remember how it started. Our back and forth. Victory. Fumble. Repeat. It always came back.
Okay, here we go, throw it! Yeah.
You probably don't remember what you told me,
That was perfect.
but I heard every word.
Nice.
If you need to do something to feel okay to drive, you're not okay to drive. Don't drive buzzed.
(911), where's your emergency?
I just shot my best friend on an accident! Oh my God!
Welcome back. I'm joined in studio now by NTD Health correspondent and host of Vital Signs, Brendan Fallon. Vital Signs zooms in on important aspects of health that influence our lives. Brendan, nice to see you. What have you got for us today?
I'm back, Steph, and I'm hoping not to make too much of a spectacle of myself. Excuse the pun there. I've been wearing glasses for about 20 years. And it's not something I've really questioned. I've fortunately maintained the same prescription, I think roughly -2 in one eye, -1.5 in the other. And I haven't really thought too much about it. But speaking to this doctor, she's a neuro-ophthalmologist, so she's an eye doctor, but looking also very much at how what's happening in the brain relates to the eye. What she had to say about her own experience with having the wrong prescription really prompted me to think about whether this is something I need to look into. And I think many viewers will be interested to hear what she has to say on this. So this is the first clip we have to look at.
And initially my prescription was about a -2,
But then over time, especially during medical school, as I was reading a lot, I was spending a lot of time up close, my prescription increased to a -5 in the right eye and -3 in the left eye. Now, I lived with that prescription for decades. I was wearing glasses or contacts corrected from -5, -3 for decades until finally I had something called a cycloplegic refraction. Now, that is basically drops are put in the eye, the dilating drops that most people get during an eye exam to check the back of the eye. Those drops are put in the eye. And what those drops do is that they paralyze this ciliary muscle over here. They paralyze this muscle. So the muscle is not able to contract. And when the drops are used, the true prescription becomes available. So there's a little bit of complicated optics here, so I'll try to explain it in lay terms. But basically, when a child is looking at distance, and even if they're a little bit myopic, they're trying really, really hard to focus. They're trying really hard to see the smaller letters. And this muscle kicks in. Even though they're not looking up close, they're looking at distance. This muscle can kick in when someone is really trying to strain to focus. So unfortunately, many young people are overcorrected because this accommodation muscle is active when it really shouldn't be. So the drops prevent that muscle from working, and it gives the true prescription. So back to what happened to me, when I had that cycloplegic refraction done, which was unfortunately in my 40s, I went for decades wearing the wrong prescription. And even as an eye care provider, I never actually went to get a proper cycloplegic refraction. What was discovered is that instead of a -5, my right eye was actually a -3.5. And instead of a -3, my left eye was actually a -150. So a huge decrease in my prescription because I was overcorrected for so many years.
Fascinating. So this is from an interview that you made with this doctor for Vital Signs earlier this year, Dr. Bannock. Right, it is, right? And so what advice did she give in terms of people who might be considering getting surgery or somehow other fixing their eyesight?
Well, on this issue of getting the cycloplegic refraction test done, she's saying anyone, if you are myopic, if you're experiencing eye strain with your current prescription, or if you have children who are myopic, she recommends really looking into getting this done because you could be wearing too high a prescription and it's causing you to strain your eyes.
Yeah, it does look like a fascinating area of inquiry. Any surprises from the interview?
Yeah, well, one thing that really stood out to me, I asked her about getting laser surgery done. My mother's had this and raves about it. I know many people have had success with this. But she said, as an eye doctor, she wouldn't get it done. And many eye doctors, don't get this done. And here she explains the reason why.
The risks are very, very low. But one thing I'll tell you, and I hope, Brandon, your listeners really think about this when they're considering laser eye surgery. I always tell my patients, if you go to any ophthalmology conference or optometry conference and you're looking around in the room and, at these conferences, sometimes we have 30, 40,000 eye doctors all together in one place. Most of us are wearing glasses or contacts. And you have to ask, okay, so why is it that the doctors who do the surgery don't get it done on themselves? Okay, so I mentioned I'm myopic. I have never gotten LASIK done and I never will. I'm happy with my contact lenses. So why is it that the doctors who do the procedures are not getting it done on themselves? And there's an answer for this. It's because we know what the risks can be. And even though those risks are very, very small, they're minute, having a complication is not worth it to us because we've seen all the complications. We've dealt with the complications. We know how potentially devastating it can be to get an infection or to get scarring in the cornea. So we're not willing to risk that for our vision because we use our vision for our livelihood. We operate, we do eye exams, we need to be able to see clearly. So if you're in a profession where you have high, really demanding visual requirements, for example, pilots or people who are in the military or people who are in law enforcement, they really need to have excellent vision. For those individuals, or surgeons, for example, for those individuals, maybe think twice before you consider getting laser refractive surgery. But for the general population, most people get it done and they're very, very thrilled with the result.
So I know this is part of a much longer episode and discussion with Dr. Bannock, but was there anything that kind of changed your perspective on eye care or vision correction?
Certainly. I think it really prompted me just to think about how I care for my eyes. And just so generally, so many of us are stuck in front of a computer screen for so much of our day. And I'm doing that. Sometimes I'm getting headaches. Sometimes I can feel eye strain. I'm getting dry eyes. And she offered a very useful exercise, a very simple exercise to relieve eye strain. And it's called the 20-20-20 rule. And it's as simple as just every 20 minutes, if you're sitting in front of your screen, you look away 20 yards into the distance for 20 seconds. And then you can go back to whatever you're doing. And that I've been doing this. I do it when I can remember to do it, and it does. I think it does relieve that strain on the eyes.
Yeah, on the eyes and on the mind, it seems. Get you a bit of perspective. Was there anything else that kind of touched on broader issues of eye care relating to access or nutrition and things like that?
Broader issues. There's so much in this episode, and I really encourage viewers to check it out because it's a look at not just look mainly at natural ways to improve myopia, but also some of the leading medical techniques that are being employed. And one thing is just like getting outside more. They're finding with kids, there's studies being done showing children who are spending more time outside in the sun have better vision. And
right. Did she mention anything about, vitamin D or any specific functions that come into that, or perhaps that's all we need is the practical side of it to take that step? I'm sure that the vitamin D isn't doing any harm. I think it's also just we're not meant to be stuck in front of a screen all the time. We're not meant to be even reading like this, just constantly looking up close. Yeah. Getting outside, you're prompted to look into the distance, which is what our eyes are meant to be doing. Yeah. And so I think that's a significant factor in this. It all comes back to some very core principles that we've lived for many, many years as a humankind. But so good to have these reminders as well and see some of the science behind it. Thank you so much, Brendan. Good to speak with you.
Always a pleasure, Steph. Thank you.
And to see that full Vital Signs interview on natural ways to treat myopia, go to your web browser and enter ept.ms/treatmyopia. Next, coming up, today is Father's Day, and what better gift to give him than helping him stay healthy? And we hear from a war veteran about living with PTSD and what it really takes to heal the invisible wounds beneath the surface. More in just a moment here on NTD News Today.
Big things are happening at Mathis Homes. Save all summer long with price drop alerts all over the store. Their suppliers have cut prices and they're passing those savings on to you. Get new lower prices with top name recliners as low as $199 and huge markdowns on hundreds of sofas and all the latest styles. Now's your chance to save big for every room in your house. There's something for everyone. Plus, get 12-month no-interest financing and free delivery. Check out these price drop alerts and save at your furniture superstore, Mathis Home.
I'm Ilka. I live with my daughter and with my grandchildren. There's a sense of comfort that comes with eating a good meal. We try to make the most, of what we have. We have rent to pay, and then there are lights and there are gas. And while my daughter and I both work, it still just doesn't seem like there's enough to go around sometimes.
Every day, millions of our neighbors face hunger, including 1 in 5 children, and food costs keep rising. Please call or go online right now to join Feeding America with your gift of just $19 a month, only 63 cents a day. Your monthly support can fill plates with nutritious food for families across the country and in your community, thanks to a nationwide network of food banks and volunteers.
If you were over and playing with us, you were part of our family and you were going to eat. A real cook can take nothing and make something.
No one should ever have to wonder if they will have enough to eat, and our neighbors are working hard to feed their families every day. Call or go online now. Visit helpfeedingamerica.org and give $19 a month. 98% of donations go directly to help millions of people facing hunger from coast to coast and in your own community. Use your credit card and you'll get this exclusive canvas grocery bag as a thank you for joining hands with people across America to help end hunger.
Some of the lessons that I hope that my family will take, it is important to treat people the way that you want to be treated. I have carried on the tradition of loving people through food.
Please call right now or go online to make a monthly gift at helpfeedingamerica.org. Your support helps our neighbors bring food home to their families.
Hi, I'm Smokey Bear, and I made an assistant to help you out, because only you can prevent wildfires.
Hey, Assistant Smokey Bear, call me Papa Bear, because I'm grilling up dinner. Do you get it?
Yes, good job.
So, what should I do with all these coals?
Don't just toss them out. Put them in a metal container because those embers can start a wildfire.
I understand. The stakes are high.
Ha 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 ha.
See, Smokey thinks I'm funny.
Welcome back. Today is Father's Day, the perfect time to show Dad just how much he means to you. And what better gift to give him than helping him stay healthy? Here are 5 health tips.
It's not always on top of the priority list. Fathers and father figures may need a push to focus on their health.
Men in society are expected to be the leaders of their family units, to be strong, not to complain, endure pain, work through it.
Dr. Edward Cartman with El Camino Health in California says stress can take a toll, but there are 5 tips men can use to optimize their health. First, get regular checkups and get screened at each stage of life.
So in their 20s and 30s, be screening for testicular cancers. When they get into their 40s and 50s, start looking at heart disease. In 60s and 70s, looking at cancer risks and screenings.
Next, find ways to manage stress. Cartman says regular exercise is a perfect stress reliever, and it can also help with the third goal, maintaining a healthy body weight. That can help lower risk of heart disease, diabetes, joint pain, sleep apnea, and more. Fourth, prioritize getting good quality sleep, a key component for both mental and physical health. And finally, Cartman says to make sure your testosterone levels are balanced.
It's an equivalent hormone to estrogen in women. It plays a lot of similar vital roles in terms of bone health, energy, mood, muscle health, just a variety of things. There's studies now coming out showing that a healthy testosterone level is related with a longer lifespan.
And with Father's Day here, everybody's thinking about the perfect way to celebrate. Well, NTD's Carrie Dunst spoke with Ryan McDermott, an Iraq combat vet, for inspiration on gifts to give Dad. Check it out.
And with Father's Day approaching this Sunday, many are planning the perfect day or perhaps a gift to honor their dad. Yet our next guest has another suggestion. Joining us now is Ryan McDermott. He's an Iraq War veteran and author of the new book, Downriver, Memoir of a Warrior Poet. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, Ryan. And before we get into your Father's Day gift suggestion, can you please share a little bit about your background?
Thank you for having me on this morning. Yes, absolutely. Downriver, Memoir of a Warrior Poet is about my story. It's about growing up in Florida, also eventually going to West Point, deploying to the Iraq War in 2003, and then later on working at Wall Street. Basically, the quiet battles that followed me home, PTSD, fatherhood, and the long road to healing. I led a platoon into Iraq at 24 years old, came back to success at Wall Street, but nearly lost myself in the process. This Father's Day, Downriver, Memoir of a Warrior Poet is really a tribute not just to the dads who've served, but to all fathers carrying invisible burdens. It's about breaking silence and showing that strength comes when we choose to embrace that vulnerability and rebuild.
Now let's talk about that invisible burden. And you're recommending that families can reach out and provide something of value to their father it's not tangible and it's not just, going out to the ball game. It's something else. So how do you engage with that? How do family members support fathers in that way?
Well, I think a lot of fathers try to carry their strength without sort of showing anything below the surface. We don't want our families to worry about us. I mean, to be frankly speaking. But I think on Father's Day, I think it's a great opportunity for, family members to recognize that fathers, just as you would on Mother's Day, parents have a lot of burdens. And so I think it's, hear more about their childhood. A lot of fathers carry various traumas from their childhood that sort of affect the way they think. And it's about engagement. We want to my goal is to my book with Downriver is to sort of promote engagement and heal relationships and improve relationships.
Now, do you have any anecdotes of how engaging with a dad or a tactic can help them to open up? Because as you said, a lot of dads want to show a bit of stoicism, strength. So are there tactics that you've seen effective if somebody said, oh, I want to try that this Sunday? What could they do?
I think asking questions, just getting folks talking, ask about, if you know a little bit about their childhood. I've known very successful people who, they're, somebody who I know who's lost a father at 10 years old. What impact did that have on them? You don't necessarily want to probe too deeply and make a big deal about it, but, it's a great opportunity to, sort of understand those types of challenges that everyone faces.
Yeah, open-ended questions instead of closed questions. Right now, General Petraeus, noted for turning the tide on the Iraq War, and he's also the author of the Counterinsurgency Doctrine. He wrote the foreword to your book and praises it for its emotional depth and its resonance. Why do you think people are relating so strongly to your memoir?
Well, that's a great question. I think one of the reasons is because I try to be very honest about the whole experience leading up to it. It was written as I went through it, so it was written contemporaneously. This was meant for me. I wrote this for me. General Petraeus, I reached out to him, sent the memoir. I really want to make sure I honored those who served. I would also, in the story, so telling the story in a way that's true to myself, but also to those others. We have a Gold Star parent, and that Gold Star parent's praise was equally, if not more in some ways, impactful to me because I knew his son during his life.
Now, in addition to your own story, you strike on themes of both leadership and healing from trauma, and these two topics, they sometimes are thought to be mutually exclusive. Either you're strong or you're sort of in touch with your feelings. How do you sort of square that circle, if you will, to be able to do both?
Well, I think that it's an illusion to suggest that everyone's sort of invulnerable. I mean, I think part of leadership is conveying a sense of vulnerability while being strong and being able to empathize. Empathy is a key leadership aspect. I think, especially with this younger generation, my kids' generation, I think there's a need to empathize, and being able to show vulnerability and connect to people is a key part of that.
Now, I think people who are unfamiliar with the military are surprised to hear about these qualities from many different points. We hear about, decentralized command and communication, but empathy doesn't seem like something that you would think of a modern warrior. But in fact, you're suggesting that it's a pretty key element in leadership, and it's taught in the military. So could you expand on that a little bit?
Absolutely. I went to West Point. My son just graduated West Point. There's a key part of leadership is understanding those who your subordinates and understanding what motivates them so that you can actually lead them better. There's a degree of empathy. You have to, and what I mean by empathy is being able to understand and feel the other person's the way they're feeling in order to lead them through that process on a day-to-day. I believe that everybody, beneath the surface wants to be a good team player and be productive. And so if they're not, I think, you've got to potentially scratch the surface a little bit and better understand people, understand their motivations, and if there's anything in their life that perhaps that's weighing them down.
Well, it's very inspirational. We really appreciate you joining us this morning, especially timed with Sunday coming up with Father's Day. Ryan McDermott, author of Downriver, Memoir of a Warrior Poet. Have a great day and a great Father's Day.
Thank you. You too. Thank you.
And next, researchers in Japan have developed a plastic that dissolves in seawater within hours, offering a potential fix for a modern-day scourge that's polluting oceans and harming wildlife. Let's take a closer look.
Could this bit of plastic be the answer to a modern-day plague that's choking oceans and harming wildlife? Its Japanese developers say it's as strong as conventional petroleum-based plastics, but can dissolve in seawater within hours. This new supramolecular plastic was co-developed by the University of Tokyo and the Riken Center for Emergent Matter Science. The center's group director and lead researcher Takuzo Aida explains that it's made by combining two ionic monomers to form a salt bond, which keeps it strong and flexible. But the trick is, this plastic material is highly sensitive to salt.
When it comes into contact with salt, it will break down into its original raw materials. Then, these raw materials themselves can be decomposed by bacteria, meaning that they ultimately return to the environment as safe substances.
Aida says tests in salt solutions similar to seawater saw the plastic dissolve in about 2 to 3 hours, depending on size and thickness. It works in soil too, if a little slower. Aida says tests showed a small piece of the plastic decomposed after about 200 hours. Studies have found many existing biodegradable plastics don't break down fully. That leaves behind the microplastics that are found everywhere these days. Microplastics are fragments less than 1/5 of an inch in size. In 2020, an estimated 2.7 million tons of it seeped into the environment, the UN Environment Programme said. Researchers have even found microplastics in the human brain, arteries, and other organs. Currently, less than 9% of global plastic waste is successfully recycled. And plastic pollution is set to triple by 2040, according to the UN. That means adding up to 37 million metric tons of plastic waste to the world's oceans each year. The new material is still in its development phase, but Aida hopes their fully degradable plastic will prove useful for the packaging industry and become a safe, sustainable substitute. The amount of plastic being produced is increasing every year, he says. So if we can help stop that growth and even begin to reduce it, that would be the most meaningful contribution we could make.
Coming up, Israel and Iran launching missiles at each other for 3 days straight. Stay with us and we'll bring you more news right after this break.
All throughout your home, appliances and systems just wait for the worst time to break down and leave you with expensive repairs. Unless you have a plan from Choice Home Warranty.
All home appliances and systems have a breakdown clock, and when it expires, it will cost hundreds and potentially even thousands of dollars to fix or replace. That's why every homeowner should have a plan with Choice Home Warranty, like I do. For a low monthly fee, a Choice Home Warranty plan will cover your heating, air conditioning, plumbing, appliances, and more. Don't let an unexpected repair wreck your budget. With Choice Home Warranty, that covered repair is fixed or replaced for you.
Choice Home Warranty has been a great company to work with, and they've taken care of us. I would suggest anybody who lives in a home not to be in a home without them.
Avoid the ticking clock of home appliances and systems breaking down with a plan from Choice Home Warranty. Call now to get your first month free. Call in the next 10 minutes and we'll give you $120 off your first year of coverage. That's $200 in total savings.
With a nationwide network of over 25,000 technicians, I don't worry about how my next breakdown will be handled. With a click of a button, my claim is filed, and Choice Home Warranty starts the clock. They do the legwork, hiring the right technician and handling the cost of covered repairs and replacements. And check this out. For a limited time, you can get 1 month of coverage free. Did you hear me? Free. You can't beat that deal with a sledgehammer. But hurry, this offer is ticking away. Once the clock hits zero, poof, it's gone.
Don't fear the breakdown clock. Get a plan from Choice Home Warranty and get round-the-clock money-saving protection you can count on. Call in the next 10 minutes and we'll give you $120 off your first year of coverage, plus get your first month free. This offer won't last long.
Get your home protected. Call now.
Don't wait for an appliance or system to break down. Call before that happens. Call 800-983-3523. 800-983-3523.
We said we'd never break the 3-second rule. We'd never make a separate dinner. and never do that. We'd never let them sleep in our room. And never become a minivan mom.
Hey, Chris.
Okay, well, I'm not at my desk right now. As parents, we say never a lot, but never happens. So when you say you'd never leave your child in a hot car, know it can happen. Before you leave the car, always stop, look, lock.
Welcome to NTD News Today. I'm Stephanie Cox. Here are today's top stories. NTD Steve Lance sits down with U.S. Secretary of Veterans Affairs Doug Collins for an exclusive interview about faith, cutting wait times for veterans, and the historic Army 250th Parade in D.C. Israel and Iran exchanging direct missile strikes for a third consecutive day. What are the strategic aims behind the escalation, and how is the U.S. responding? We discuss with expert panelists. The National Mall buzzed with celebration for the Army's 250th birthday, and NTD's Melina Weisgott brings you the sights and sounds from the heart of the festivities. Behind every fallen hero is a story. A Gold Star mother shares about her son's life, his legacy, and how she's keeping his memory alive. And today is Father's Day, and what better gift to give him than helping him stay healthy? We've got tips and advice.
This is NTD News Today, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Welcome back. In this next NTD exclusive, Steve Lance sat down with U.S. Secretary of Veterans Affairs Doug Collins. They talk about leading the department through faith and compassion, cutting wait times for veterans, and of course, the historic parade in Washington, D.C., celebrating the Army's 250th anniversary on Saturday. Take a look.
I'm Steve Lance, and I'm in the nation's capital. Tonight, we bring you an NTD exclusive with U.S. Secretary of Veterans Affairs Doug Collins. As an Iraq War veteran and an active Air Force chaplain, he gives us insight into the role faith and compassion play in fueling what he sees as his continued service to our nation. Secretary Collins came into the role set on cutting regulations across the department and elevating the quality of care for veterans. He shares how the unique and intimate dynamic of the Trump administration 2.0 is making this goal achievable and at a rapid pace. Here's my conversation with Secretary Doug Collins. Secretary Collins, thank you so much for sitting down with us.
Glad to be with you.
It's great to have you. Secretary, your department, since President Trump's second term, has reduced disability compensation backlog claims by 25%. Yeah. Talk to us about why this was a priority for you and how you addressed it.
Well, I'd love to. It's one of the things that gets measured. In the VA system, we're a hospital system like every other hospital system in the country, except for one thing. We take care of veterans. And also we have a pretty good, what I call, large number of board of directors who sit on Capitol Hill. So when they look at us, they look at several things. They look at wait times. Are the veterans getting taken care of? Are they getting their claims processed? Or on the disability side, they look at how fast or how quickly those processed disability claims are. What's happened over the past few years, COVID started the trend, but then they never got better. Even though we added millions of dollars and lots of people, we still had 260,000 of our over 125-day backlog of claims. So what we said was, what gets measured gets done, and we said, look, we're going to start bringing this down. As soon as I had my Deputy Secretary Paul Lawrence come on, who had experience at VBA, I said, let's focus this intently on getting this down. And since then, we've done 25%. So we're under 200,000, first time in a little over 2 years, I believe it is, and we're moving down even faster to get that. why it matters is because the veteran is not having to wait for a decision. They're actually getting their decisions. These ones have been, think about this, 120, 140, 130 days. They've been waiting 3 and 4 months for a decision to even move forward. So this helps us not only get better customer service, but it also makes sure that our system's working like it should.
I want to talk to you about obviously the veterans, but also the veterans' families and those that are Gold Star families. This is an area that you've been really focused on, shifting the Office of Survivors Assistance under your direct leadership. Why was this move so important, and how has it changed the way that the VA serves Gold Star families?
This is an easy one for us. This should be one of the things that we do and should not think about. Folks who are going through this difficult situation in their life, the last thing they need is sort of a clinical approach to the benefits that they either have or don't have. And some think that they're going to have more than they have. Some are going to get more than they think they have. But it's knowing how they can get it. I describe it like this. There's a clinical way to talk about somebody who's passed away, and there's a funeral home director's way to talk about somebody who's passed away. We were too much on what I call the clinical side. Your loved one is dead, here's the end result. Sort of from that other perspective, that compassionate funeral home director side is, your loved one's dead, let's see if we can walk you through this. We want to make sure that we'll do everything we can to take a very difficult time and make it as easy as possible. So that's why I said, look, we're not going. The previous administration buried it, sort of got it away from where it was, which it was not being taken care of as it should be, where we're getting complaints about it. I said, let's move it back to where it's supposed to be, under the Secretary's office, so we can give a white glove treatment. We make sure that they get at least heard and cared for, because anyone going through that trying of a loss is someone who needs more support, and they also need answers at the same time.
You'd mentioned the principle of compassion. Talk to us about how this sort of guides what you do, specifically when it comes to dealing with these Gold Star families and actually creating a survivor outreach team.
Yeah, well, it just goes back to the understanding of empathy in what we do. We're a great organization that has one purpose and one purpose only, is to take care of veterans. That's our only purpose, and we're large. We're the largest non-DoD department in the whole federal government. We take care of people on a daily basis with their medical needs, the most sensitive needs of their life. And for me, it's just understanding. One of the things I greatly love, not just in the survivor side, is I go to the hospitals and I get to see face to face. I sit at their hospital beds, I pray with them, I talk with them, because it's what I've done basically all my life. But now it's in a way that I can say, how can we make sure we're doing it the best we can? We got great employees who do great things, but many times the VA as a building, as an organization, has become too unwieldy, because if you get so large and you just sort of take care of yourself, you forget your mission. Well, for me, it came back to saying, what is our mission? It's a service organization, not an employment agency, not anything else. It's a service agency that says our one group is veterans. That's who we're going to take care of. So compassion is just reaching out and having the empathy that you would want somebody else to show to you.
So you are a veteran,
yes.
Were a veteran before becoming the VA secretary. So along with that, when you go to the hospital and you're talking to veterans or at events, how much of that sort of informs and inspires what you do, and what have been some of the biggest takeaways from what you're hearing from the folks?
Oh, it inspires everything, because you speak a common language, and I think that's an interesting part. For the younger veterans I've had, and we will talk, I was in Iraq, and I can say, if I hear they're an Iraq veteran, say, well, hey, where were you at? Where were you at? And sometimes we'll have crossed the same dirt, so to speak, and so that makes it just an instant connection. But we can talk about things that were in my purview the 23 plus years that I've been in, but then also going back to our Vietnam veterans, our Korean veterans, our World War II precious veterans who are still around with us, and even our Gulf Storm and the others. It's a commonality of military experience. It's a commonality of going through some of the same things. You know what your family's going through. You went through a basic training. You went through somebody yelling at you. You learned how to put on a uniform. You learned that you march in a straight line. For Air Force, well, we're not at my other branches, and it's that sort of give and take. So they'll pick on me, I get to pick on them, but we're speaking a similar language, and I think that matters so much when we're talking, because they want to be heard, and it's important for our doctors and our nurses also to speak that language too. So if they say, a veteran says, I was at a FOB, and they don't understand what they're talking about, well, that's a forward operating base. They need to understand that language, because that's the way they communicate. So being a veteran and having a lot of veterans that work with us is very, very important.
There's another very serious issue that I'd like to discuss with you, which is so many of the veterans that come back have an invisible wound, which is that of PTSD, post-traumatic stress syndrome. Last month, your department announced $52 million in grants for local organizations for suicide prevention. What is it that the public should know about PTSD and our veterans?
I think the biggest thing they need to know is that one, it is real. and it can come up in different ways in different people. It doesn't have to be something that they experience every moment of the day. There's some that it pops up at different times. There's some that it is debilitating, that they can't go to work or they can't function in a family. It causes relationships to get strained. And then for some it could be much more infrequent, but it still causes hardships between relational issues more than anything. What we're looking at is people need to know that there's a lot of times people just need to be reached out to. That there might be a way that you can fix anything going on, but you can be there to listen, you can be there to talk, you can be there to remind them that there is a purpose in living. And I think because PTS and traumatic brain injury, which goes along with that, is very difficult. Chronic pain. We have a lot of our members who have been multiple deployments. They come back and they have pain that just is with them all the time. They need the surrounding people to understand sort of what they're going through to help them get through each and every day, because if not, they lose hope. When they lose hope, that is the first and classic slide into death by suicide, which is still way too prevalent in our country now among veterans.
What would your message be to those veterans who may be in a situation where they don't know where to go and may feel like they're being forgotten?
Reach out anywhere. Reach out to the VA. Go to the hospital. Go to a clinic. Dial 988. That's our veteran crisis line. All they have to do is hit 1, and somebody's there to talk to them every day, every minute of the year. They can have somebody to talk to. Don't feel like they're alone. But it's going to take. It's also something for our other folks in our communities to understand. If you know of a veteran, if you know somebody that says maybe they're not acting right, a lot of us have text chains with our friends, our buddies. If someone stops communicating on a text chain, reach out why. They may not have been a veteran, but if they are a veteran, they may want to know why they stopped communicating. That could be a moment that they're struggling. So it's not just the veteran themselves who struggle. And for them to reach out, we're going to give them every opportunity. But I think it's a community, whether it's the VA or our nonprofit groups or VSOs or anybody else, to reach out and make sure that we're reaching those that may not be able to speak for themselves right now.
I think you make many really important points, but something that strikes me, having 2 childhood friends who are twins, both of them going into the military, you talk about it affecting different people. They were largely the same person, looked the same. One of them committed suicide. The other one is perfectly fine, both seeing the same action overseas.
Yeah, it depends. I mean, everybody, it's sort of like life. Everybody can see the same thing and react differently. I know some people who can watch a horror movie and they're traumatized, and another person starts laughing in the middle of it. And it's just the way we see it. But however, in a military setting, in a situation like this, it is really a disturbing issue when it then begins to affect life. It begins to affect that they don't have a way to process it. And that's where it really becomes, I think, known for not only the community, but our VA, our clinicians and others as well, to adjust it. I can't emphasize this enough. It will affect people differently. And the treatments will affect each other differently as well. Some will respond to some things where some won't respond to some things.
Now, you've spoken about wanting your department to make a difference for veterans. Since taking over as secretary, has there been a moment that's really stood out to you personally?
I think there is when we start seeing, one we talked about earlier, that would be the disability backlog going down. I see it when I start getting our social media accounts. When I first got there, it was, help us do this, and we got the laundry list, which I enjoy so much. But now we're starting to get responses on social media, phone calls to congressional saying, hey, in the last few months, I'm getting my appointments quicker. I mean, the things are getting better. It's those little things like that really, for me, begin to say, hey, we're making a difference in the lives of our veterans and also our employees as well. We've got a lot of change and a lot of stuff going on, but when we're moving the ball forward, that's the biggest difference that I can see.
Now, a little bit of palace intrigue here. We've been hearing from a few cabinet members that there's actually a real sense of camaraderie among department heads. We'll leave out Elon and Secretary Besant, but is that true? And has this kind of relationship led to tangible collaboration and results that might not have happened otherwise?
Oh, very much so. I've said this before. This is a different cabinet. The president was not because I'm there, because I maybe the weakest link, so to speak. But I don't think so, because I think that what we have is he looked for a cabinet that is, and I'll use military terms. Too many times you brought cabinets in, you brought sort of these specialists, old statesmen, people who had sort of been through the systems of all these. And what President Trump did was said, I want somebody that's strategic, that can think big picture, but I want them to be tactical. In other words, think about what could happen, but how do you actually get it done? And for me, my staff will laugh at you all the time. I don't stay in my office. The folks outside, if I want to go to somebody's office, I just walk down the hall and go ask them a question. I don't wait for them to give me a paper. I just want to know right then. Don't pick up the phone and call. I get involved with constituents. I get involved with veterans who need help. And across the cabinet, you see that. So how does that affect this weekend? Bobby Kennedy and I were texting over the weekend about an issue that we had with someone that was going back home and dealing with an FDA issue. Pete, the Secretary of Defense, and I have done the same thing, and we just signed a memorandum of understanding that aligns DOD and VA in ways that we've never seen before, because we both understand that we're sort of, I call us fraternal twins. We do two different things, but with the same people. So that's the kind of thing. I mean, Tulsi Gabbard, you go Pam Bondi, you go Brooks Rawlings, you go Scott Turner, Lori, that just all of us have worked together, Lee Zeldin, in a way that we're friends and we've worked together before. Many of us on the Hill, but some in private organizations that say our job is to get stuff done for this country. The president put out a huge vision, and it's our job to carry it out in these departments and not get weighed down by that.
Speaking to that, you've obviously seen how the bureaucracy works working on Capitol Hill. How much of your experience on the Hill are you able to apply here to cut through the red tape?
A lot, in the sense that I respect my colleagues on the Hill greatly. We work together, but I also know they have a job, and I know what that job is. I've done it for 8 years at the highest levels up there. And so it doesn't intimidate me that when they need to say something or do something, I understand what they're doing. But it gives me the opportunity to go back and say, okay, I know what you're trying to hear, but here's what we're trying to do. Here's what we really need. And if you want to fix it, here's how you can fix it. Just a month or two ago, Mike Boss is the chairman of the House Veterans Affairs Committee, and he had some legislation that we see their legislation, and they ask us for our opinion on members' legislation. And from being on the Hill, I was reading through some of the bills, and I saw it was a bill about our Board of Appeals. And I said, well, we don't need this, but we do need several other things. So I picked up and called the chairman. I said, Chairman, hey, I know this is one of your members' bills. Would they be open to us helping rewrite this bill to get us something we actually need? And they do. So me understanding the legislative process, me understanding, how the Hill works, I think has helped us a great deal at the VA. Doesn't mean that we're going to agree all the time. In fact, we won't, but it gives us an understanding of how we can find solutions.
Hearing the stories about Vietnam veterans returning home after putting everything on the line and the way that they were, treated and accepted here, with the Army's 250th birthday upon us and a grand military parade, what does an event like this mean for the veterans?
I think it's just going to be special. I really do. And there's detractors saying, oh, a parade, this. But no, sometimes you just need to celebrate. Sometimes you just need to sit back, and I think the president gets this. That there's a national ethos out there that says, we're proud to be Americans. We're proud of our military. We're proud of 250 years of the Army, 250 years of the Navy, 250 years of the Marine Corps. That's pretty good. I'm Air Force. We're ticking with our 75 to 80 years right now, but we're getting there. But we're proud of what we do. And I think for every Army person that has served and served that uniform, they're tracing their lineage back to the Revolutionary War. They're tracing their lineage back to the ones who put on that citizen soldier who went out and said, no, we're going to be a country. We're not going to be told what to do. So I just think it's going to be something. And so for the people out there who want to talk about it and just come on. This is our country. This is a pride in what we take. And, those are the men and women who are on the line when you're asleep at night. They're the ones who are going to get called. They're the ones that's waiting for the president to send them when they need to protect this country. Maybe a day is worth thinking about how good we have it.
I want to talk about your faith.
Yes.
You're still a chaplain.
Yes.
In the military. Talk to us about how your faith has guided you through the process and how it still may.
I can't think of doing my job without it. It's like my glasses. I mean, I can see technically without my glasses, but when I put my glasses on, I see much clearer. Well, my faith is that way. It's not something I can take on and off. It's who I have to see what I believe God has called me to do. And so faith, it makes me want to help others. It makes me compassionate, but it also makes me firm resolve that sometimes you have to stand and fight. There's things that are not worth compromising on. And this job for me is taking care of people. It's actually not accepting the bureaucratic answer. It's not accepting we've always done it that way before. I believe God's put us at a special time and a special purpose for a lot of things. So for me, faith is all. I mean, I have outside my Savior, Jesus, I have nothing. And so I think that's the thing that drives me. And it also gives me another perspective. And there's several verses, and I used to like, there's the end of this in the scripture, but there was a young man who we were similar age growing up, and one day he got up and he was giving his testimony. We was just talking about his life at church one day. And he says, we've had all these problems. He had just gotten married, and he said, we've had all these problems. He said, but I woke up one day and I looked at all the bills and looked at everything. He said, I knew that God was going to take care of me, and they just couldn't eat me. And I thought to myself, that's a unique way of putting the verse, that what can man do to me? God is in control. And so for me, going to Congress, taking on media, taking on everything we're going to, my faith is built on not what man's opinion is, it's based on what he's given me.
At the conclusion of this 4-year term, the legacy of Secretary Doug Collins, what do you hope it to be?
That he made a difference. That's it.
Secretary Collins, greatly appreciate you sitting down with us.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
The sincere wish to make a difference and preserve the freedoms gifted to us by those who came before is what has guided generations of service members and continues to ignite our troops. As we look ahead to the 250th birthday of our nation, may we continue to honor those who've made this great experiment possible. Thank you for joining us for this NTD exclusive interview with Secretary of Veterans Affairs, Doug Collins.
Coming up, Israel and Iran exchanging direct missile strikes for a third consecutive day. What are their strategic aims behind the escalation, and how is the U.S. responding? We discuss with expert panelists coming right up.
Shenyun Creations, the streaming platform from Shenyun, featuring world-class dance, past programs, and all original music. Masterclasses, behind the scenes, comedy, and more. Explore shenyuncreations.com.
Kids love it. Parents trust it. Obviously. Explore GJW Plus Kids Series and Ganjiong Campus courses led by expert educators. This is spectacular. Children will learn values like respect, responsibility, and knowledge in language, science, and more. Wow. All while having fun. Perfect. Subscribe today at GJW Plus Kids, where learning meets fun.
I go by Jackie. I'm 44 years old. I had 3 kids at the time and single mother. I was working 60 hours a week, still couldn't pay the bills. Skip meals so that they could eat. It's been hard because one thing falls into place, 10 things fall out of place. I just can't do this alone and make it work.
1 in 5 children face hunger in America, and food costs are rising. But everyone needs nourishing food to thrive, and they can when we work together so our neighbors can feed their families. Call or go online right now to join Feeding America with your gift of just $19 a month, only 63 cents a day. Together, thanks to a nationwide network of food banks, dedicated volunteers, and the monthly support of people like you, we can fill plates with nutritious food for families across America.
One day my mother came over to my house and said, "There's a meeting at the pantry." I said, "Okay." And I went. There were some ladies in there. They were from the food bank. They asked several questions. Some of those were about me and my story, but it helped me to open up a little bit.
We're getting closer to the day when no one in America faces hunger, but we can't do it without you. Call or go online now. Visit helpfeedingamerica.org and give $19 a month, just 63 cents a day. 98% of donations go directly to help millions of people facing hunger, from coast to coast and in your own community. And when you give by credit card, we'll send you this exclusive canvas grocery bag to show you are a part of a movement of supporters working together to help end hunger.
I have people that I can trust. I have hope.
Please call now or make your monthly donation at helpfeedingamerica.org, and your gift can double in impact.
Escalation in the Middle East. Israel and Iran trading deadly strikes that have leveled buildings and killed civilians on both sides. The conflict has prompted sharp warnings from world leaders, and as the crossfire intensifies, so do fears that it could escalate into a broader regional war. Here's more.
Buildings were reduced to ruins on both sides, and people hid in shelters as the crossfire continued. It began after Israel launched a large-scale attack on Iran early on Friday. The army released this footage of what it says was a barrage, which Israel said was aimed at military targets to prevent Iran from building a nuclear weapon. Iran vowed to avenge the Friday attacks, and Israel's defense minister threatened to make Tehran, quote, burn after Iran's retaliatory strikes hit Israeli neighborhoods. At least 3 people in Israel were killed overnight, while Iran's state TV reported around 60 people had died in an Israeli attack on a Tehran housing complex. One of the city's residents said a strike on his home was so powerful, the explosion threw him up against the ceiling. Meanwhile, Israel kept the occupied West Bank under lockdown for a second day during these strikes. The Israeli army closed off entrances to various cities and towns there using iron gates and dirt mounds, as Palestinians expressed concern for being locked in. US President Donald Trump has lauded Israel's strikes and warned Iran of much worse to come. That's unless Iran accepts the sharp downgrading of its nuclear program demanded by the US in talks. Israel says its operation could last weeks and has urged Iran's people to rise up against their clerical rulers. It sparked fears of a further regional conflict dragging in outside powers, with global economic and financial repercussions.
Joining us to discuss Middle East security as the region faces a critical juncture while Iran and Israel engage in direct military confrontation, which is a dramatic escalation beyond years of proxy conflict. We have Ruthie Blum, a former advisor at the Office of Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu and a senior contributing editor at the Jewish News Syndicate, and David Wormser, analyst for Middle East Affairs at the Center for Security Policy. Good to have you both with us today. Ruthie, let's start with you. You're based in Israel usually, though you're currently in New York, I believe. What's it like there in Israel at the moment, from what you know?
Well, of course, I'm following very closely what's going on in Israel, as is Dave Wormser, I know. And all of my family, my children, grandchildren are in Israel and giving me hourly reports from bomb shelters, etc. What we know is, though there have been several casualties and some buildings have been hit, the fact is that this is just a tactical move on Iran's part to fire as many missiles as possible, while Israel is actually conducting strategic warfare against targets that will change the face of the Middle East and protect Israel's security.
I do want to dig into that very much. And first, though, I want to turn to you, David. You were on your way to Israel, but since all flights there have stopped amid the warfare, you're now in Rome. But your son, as Ruthie alluded to, also lives in Israel, and I'm sure many other family and friends. What's it been like for you trying to get back there, and what have you heard from your son and others there so far?
Well, it's been impossible. I mean, we were 2 hours out and suddenly did a U-turn, and then they told us that there's a security situation, landed in Rome, and the airspace remains closed, so there's really no way to get in to the country. So there's, I believe, somewhere around 100,000 to 140,000 stranded Israelis and Americans and others who were supposed to be in Israel and supposed to be going home or going to visit Israel at this point. They're stranded across Europe. So there's a major logistical issue that will come in the next few days as the airspace opens. As far as my son, it's what Ruthie also experiences. We're all worried that missiles are dangerous. They're hitting in the populated areas of the cities, and that's where our people, our families live. And yes, they're following the directions, and if you follow the directions, the chances of getting injured badly are much lower. But it's not impossible, and we saw what happened this morning in Bat Yam with that building coming, or part of that building coming down. And those that were in the stairwells were fine, which is the directive, but those.
And it looks like we've just lost David briefly there, and I'm sure he'll be back. Ruthie, I do want to dig into. Okay, it looks like we've got you back. Okay, and so you were saying it's dangerous there in the cities, but people who are following directions seem to be surviving better.
Yeah. And one has to remember there are a few Israeli buildings and a couple, 1 to 2 dozen killed. Iran is facing a complete elimination of their regime, of their military, of their terror structure, of their ballistic structure, their nuclear structure. As Ruthie said, it's a strategic takedown, whereas the Iranians are trying to just get a few kills to say, well, we killed a few Israelis. And it's an imbalance.
So let's dig into that, because this is a unique period of time for the Iranian regime. As you've both noted, the regime itself seems to be keeling over in some ways. It's weakened, at least. And you're saying that they're only coming back with some tactical response. Ruthie, do you see a potential shift here? Will they branch into some real strategic response, or is this just a short-term way to get through what's happening?
Well, they don't really have a strategic response. I mean, yes, they're trying to aim at Israeli military targets, but you see, their whole global aim is hegemony, is spreading Islamist rule. It's not as though Israel's goal is to protect itself. I mean, Iran has threatened to wipe Israel off the map. It calls America the great Satan and Israel the small Satan. This has been going on since 1979. Whereas, so on the one hand, Israel's goal is to end that threat for itself and the rest of the world. Whereas Iran's goal is to just expand itself. So you have something, it's asymmetric. Now, it's interesting. I'd like to point out something. We were talking about people in shelters, etc. Do you realize that Iran doesn't have air raid sirens or bomb shelters for its population? And what is this reminiscent of? Hamas in Gaza, where human life on their own side is very cheap to the regime because, on the contrary, they like having casualties among their civilian population so that the UN will condemn Israel, so that the West will side with them and pressure Israel to end the war. So they don't care about their own people, and they certainly don't care about civilians in Israel or America, in the West in general.
David, we've seen the proxy wars play out already with Hamas and many other proxies of Iran's aims in the Middle East, and it seems to be ongoing, so far at least. Do you see an end to this escalation, that either side pulling back, or is it just going to keep escalating?
I don't know if Iran can pull back, because if it pulls back, it collapses. It needed to the nuclear program was the only thing it had left to survive, precisely because all those proxies have been devastated. The Israelis have really ripped apart the entire strategic apparatus of Iran across the region, and they don't have a lot of options left. So they were retreating into their nuclear program and thought if they could cross the nuclear threshold, that is their ace in the hole. And that now is what really triggered this. And Israel is taking that down and shutting it down. So really, Iran has one strategic option left, which is to try to split Israel from the United States and get the United States to rein Israel in. So Iran's strategic weapon right now is information. It's trying to use those who echo its voice in the United States to say we're on the precipice of World War III. Thousands of Americans are going to be killed that are deployed to the region. Oil structures, neighboring states will be hit. And they may start trying to show that they're serious about that. But at the same time, they also don't want to push it too far, because then it brings the American military down on them too. And then that's the end as well. Yeah. So I think they're in a very difficult place. They need to try to somehow get their allies on board to trumpet their propaganda in the United States to try to create a split with the United States. But it's an almost impossible task. The president is more with Israel, and it's not showing signs of splitting.
On that point, Ruthie, how do you see these efforts that David has alluded to from Iran to try to influence U.S. policy, and how do you expect the U.S. to respond in the months and weeks ahead to this conflict?
And talk about the West as a whole. You can talk about the pacifists and isolationists in the West who are happy to try to persuade President Trump not to get involved and that Israel has to stop the war. But the rest of the sane globe is very happy about what's going on. And I'd like to say we should note that this war has been going on for a mere 2 days. That's all. And you realize what Israel has accomplished in those 2 days. This, it's really showing that Iran is a paper tiger. After all, Israel in October took out its air defenses, which enabled for it to do what it's doing now. And so far, it doesn't need the United States to come in and fight its battles. It is possible that the United States will have to help when it comes to the Fordow plant, because as far as I understand, and I'm no military expert, but the kind of bunker busters that would be needed, something that Israel does not possess and the United States does.
Certainly so many developments on this point. And as you mentioned, even just in 2 days, it's been massive, and there will be close eyes watching this all the way along from here on out. Thank you so much for joining us today, Ruthie Blum, David Wormser, for this historic time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And coming up, the U.S. Army's 250th anniversary parade marched through downtown Washington Saturday, but protests cast a shadow over the celebration. We'll have that story and more coming right up.
I'm Amy Grant, and I want to talk to you from my heart about the heart. I would have been the last person on the list to say this woman has a problem with her heart. So no, there was nothing about my life that said, you have a ticking time bomb in your chest. But I did. I wound up in the office of a cardiologist because I was there with my husband. And at the tail end of that, the cardiologist looked at me and said, I want to see you. No one was more surprised than I was to learn I was living with a rare heart condition. He said, Amy, this condition, you'll be fine, and then catastrophic. A few months later, I had open heart surgery that saved my life. And I owe it to the research and life-saving medical breakthroughs developed by the American Heart Association. That's why I'm asking you to join me and become a monthly donor to the American Heart Association. Please call now or go to helpheart.org. For only $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, you can help fund the next medical breakthrough, get the next person trained in CPR, and get the next hospital certified in high-quality cardiovascular care. If this could happen to me, it could happen to anybody. Heart disease is America's #1 killer, but your support can save your life or the life of someone you love. Give $19 a month with your credit card, and we'll send you this special t-shirt you can wear to show you're part of a community of monthly donors working to help save more lives like mine. I'm grateful for the American Heart Association. Their research gave me more time to do the things I love with the people I love. So listen to your heart. I'm here today because I did.
Please call or go online to helpheart.org. Become a monthly donor, and for a limited time only, your first month's gift will be matched.
Thank you.
I'm Jonathan Lawson. If you're 50 to 85, please listen closely. The lock I want to talk to you about isn't the one on your door. It's a rate lock for your life insurance that guarantees that once you're insured, your rate can never go up at any time for any reason. Many policies you see don't have one, but you can get a lifetime rate lock from Colonial Penn. This plan was designed for people on a fixed income with coverage options that start at $9.95 a month. That's less than 35 cents a day. Your rate is locked in for life. Coverage can never be canceled, and your acceptance is guaranteed. You cannot be turned down because of your health. See for yourself. Call for an information kit and gift. Both are free with no obligation.
Call 1-800-624-6556 for your free information and your free gift. That's 1-800-624-6556. 1-800-624-6556. Call now.
Welcome back. A military parade rolled through the streets of downtown Washington on Saturday to celebrate the U.S. Army's 250th anniversary. Though the celebrations were accompanied by a day of protests. Here's that story.
President Donald Trump's long-sought military parade rolled through the streets of downtown Washington on Saturday in celebration of the U.S. Army's 250th anniversary.
Every other country celebrates their victories. It's about time America did too.
But the event, which coincided with Trump's 79th birthday, was marred by a day of violence and discord. From New York to Chicago to Los Angeles, hundreds of thousands of Americans marched in protest of Trump's actions while in office. And earlier in the day, a gunman assassinated a Democratic lawmaker and wounded another in Minnesota. The parade kicked off earlier than expected due to thunderstorms forecast in the Washington area, with tanks, armored personnel carriers, and artillery. It's an unusual sight in the U.S. where such displays of military are rare. Trump watched the proceedings from an elevated viewing stand behind bulletproof glass.
We the people! We the people!
Many of the protests against him earlier in the day took place under the theme No Kings, asserting that no individual is above the law. Actor Mark Ruffalo was at the protest in New York.
We have a king and his court and his beige henchmen, and they're trampling on our rights and our laws and our freedoms.
The demonstrations were largely peaceful and marked the largest outpouring of opposition to Trump's presidency since he returned to power in January. The situation was more tense in Los Angeles, though. Police used flashbang grenades and tear gas to push back protesters.
And NTD's Melina Weiskup was at the scene of the festivities. Check it out.
Thousands of patriotic Americans lined the National Mall to join morning festivities as service members brought U.S. Army pride to the nation's capital.
Happy birthday, Army!
That's a big milestone. It's really big. So to be able to see how far we've come from where we used to be as a military to where we are today, it's 100% worth the celebration.
Bright and early, servicemen showcased their strength with an Army fitness competition. The kids got some training of their own with climbing and rock walls.
It was just a sea of service members in their ACUs and their uniforms, and it was just really, really cool to see how many people serve and just be able to recognize them for their time. And
folks got a chance to interact with soldiers, Army astronauts, NFL representatives, and Medal of Honor recipients.
When you walk around and meet all the soldiers out here, we all come from different walks of life, all very different backgrounds, and so coming out here showing that we have a shared purpose and common goal is just really great, and seeing the team out here putting their best foot forward and just showing the public what we have to offer makes me really proud.
Army members emphasized the importance of bringing their hard work behind the scenes into the light, inspiring and instilling the next generation with the pride that comes with protecting our nation.
I hope that maybe people are a little bit more confident in the Army.
A sentiment echoed by an Iraq veteran who brought his family along to soak in the festivities.
To celebrate this on the 250th anniversary is pretty significant for me and from my friends, my fellow soldiers that I was in Iraq with.
And people here at the festival get a unique opportunity of getting up close and personal with this military equipment.
I came in, I saw helicopters, I wanted to go over there. I saw a bunch of infantrymen on the way. And then I met this special forces guy from my hotel on the way here, and he gave me a challenge going. And then that was really exciting.
Helicopters, military firearms, grenade launchers, and a military howitzer, all on display for engaging opportunities to learn what it's like to handle gear that's used on the battlefield.
There's so many things. There's over 250 jobs. And it can be great opportunities for you. You can get college out of it. You meet best friends I've ever had are all from the Army. Just how awesome of an opportunity it can be.
Those at the event emphasized the importance of recognizing and respecting the role the U.S. Army plays in protecting our freedoms here at home.
Everyone should be here. It doesn't matter if Trump or Kamala, whoever you voted for, I feel everyone should be here to support our troops because they're the reasons why we have our freedoms. So.
But if you see some of the faces here, I mean, they're the age of my kids and some of them grandkids, in fact. And I see their heart and their love. Gonna tear up. Love for this nation, so I appreciate it.
After the festival, tanks and thousands of soldiers will march through the streets of Washington, D.C. The parade will start at 6:30 this evening, right next to the Lincoln Memorial. They'll head down Constitution Avenue toward the Vietnam Veterans Memorial and pass by the Constitution Gardens. The parade will then cut through the National Mall between the Ellipse and Washington Monument before ending near the National Museum of African American History and Culture. Helicopters and warplanes will fly overhead. Some 200,000 people are expected to attend. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Melina Weisskopf, NTD News.
Coming up, behind every fallen hero is a story. A Gold Star mother shares about her son's life, his legacy, and how she's keeping his memory alive. That story and more after this break.
Say goodbye to harsh, bitter coffee and hello to a delicious, smooth brew. With specialty quality beans, expertly roasted in-house, you'll taste the difference with every sip. Fermented with a blend of 50 enzymes, Days Coffee delivers a rich brew like no other. Made with the highest grade specialty beans available, you're sure to taste the difference. Elevate your morning with Days Enzyme Fermented Coffee.
All throughout your home, appliances and systems just wait for the worst time to break down and leave you with expensive repairs. Unless you have a plan from Choice Home Warranty.
All home appliances and systems have a breakdown clock, and when it expires, it will cost hundreds and potentially even thousands of dollars to fix or replace. That's why every homeowner should have a plan with Choice Home Warranty, like I do. For a low monthly fee, a Choice Home Warranty plan will cover your heating, air conditioning, plumbing, appliances, and more. Don't let an unexpected repair wreck your budget. With Choice Home Warranty, that covered repair is fixed or replaced for you.
Choice Home Warranty has been a great company to work with, and they've taken care of us. I would suggest anybody who lives in a home not to be in a home without them.
Avoid the ticking clock of home appliances and systems breaking down with a plan from Choice Home Warranty. Call now to get your first month free. Call in the next 10 minutes and we'll give you $120 off your first year of coverage. That's $200 in total savings.
With a nationwide network of over 25,000 technicians, I don't worry about how my next breakdown will be handled. With a click of a button, my claim is filed, and Choice Home Warranty starts the clock. They do the legwork, hiring the right technician and handling the cost of covered repairs and replacements. And check this out. For a limited time, you can get 1 month of coverage free. Did you hear me? Free. You can't beat that deal with a sledgehammer. But hurry, this offer is ticking away. Once the clock hits zero, poof, it's gone.
Don't fear the breakdown clock. Get a plan from Choice Home Warranty and get round-the-clock money-saving protection you can count on. Call in the next 10 minutes and we'll give you $120 off your first year of coverage, plus get your first month free. This offer won't last long.
Get your home protected. Call now.
Don't wait for an appliance or system to break down. Call before that happens. Call 800-983-3523. 800-983-3523.
When it comes to disasters and emergencies, it's not a matter of if, but when.
I'm relying on luck, but who knows if it'll be on my side.
Let's prepare so we all have a better story to tell. Take control at ready.gov/older-adults.
Behind every fallen hero is a family with a story. NTD's Steve Lance spoke with a Gold Star mother who reflects on her son's life, his legacy, and the sacrifice he made in service to the U.S. military. Take a look.
Patty Elliott, thank you so much for taking some time for us.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here with you today.
It's great to have you with us. Patty, tell us about your son and ultimately how you remember him now?
So Lucas was very much my adventurous, adrenaline junkie child. He shot on a high-powered rifle team. That was his passion, and so he was surrounded by veterans at all times from the time he was 12 years old on. So his passion for the military was fostered by those men and women that he shot with, and so that's something that he wanted to do from an early age.
Really amazing. What did joining the U.S. Army and serving his country mean to him?
So we were a homeschool family, and we sat and watched the events of September 11th unfold on TV, like many Americans. And I think that lit a fire for him that as you saw the stories of men and women who joined the military so that they could make sure that this never happened to America again, his passion grew also. We were always a patriotic family, but we didn't have a long history of military service in our background. So it was something that he learned and acquired that desire for at a young age. It meant the world to him.
What does it mean to you to be a Gold Star mom, and what does that really feel like? I imagine it brings very mixed emotions.
It does. So I was very involved with Lucas's life. I was the family readiness group leader for his unit. So I had that passion of 200 kids who were deployed with Lucas, who all felt that same desire to serve our country. So it was something that I knew I had to be strong and continue on for them and their families, because they were still in the heat of the battle immediately after Lucas died. The community of Gold Star mothers gave me that safe spot to land. When you walk in a room and everyone else is similarly situated to you, you don't have to say a word. You just look at each other and understand. What being in this organization has given me, though, is a way to continue to honor his service and his legacy and ensure that that sacrifice is not forgotten. The way I look at it is, God was done with Lucas. His mission is complete, but every day that he allows me to wake up, there's still more to accomplish in this world, and advocating for our veterans and our military is no better way to make sure that I complete that mission.
What role would you say your faith has played in, your journey of moving through grief and coming to really lead the American Gold Star Mothers, a nonprofit that honors, the legacy of Lucas and so many other fallen service members?
I've always felt like I am a Christian, grew up in church, but I believe that my faith is much stronger after Lucas's death, simply because I know that Lucas, so the morning that they went out on mission that ultimately Lucas died, he gathered everyone around that morning and said, "Hey, y'all, let's pray before we go out." And Lucas was not usually the one that did that. So the other folks on his team told me that, and that just struck a chord with me. So I have absolutely no doubt where my son is. And I know that my faith needs to remain strong and continue to grow so that I can be sure that I see him again one day.
We're celebrating the 250th birthday of the United States Army, the Army that made the founding of this great nation and its freedoms possible. What does it mean to you to see the Army being celebrated in this way?
I think it's fabulous. I'm so excited for all of the festivities. Our men and women, America's children, have been sacrificing for our country for hundreds of years, and it's only fitting that we celebrate that. These men and women still, every single day, that they put on the uniform and go out there and do what their country asks of them for us and our freedoms and our safety, we owe them a huge debt. It's something that not all of us are able or equipped or willing to do, and so we need to celebrate them.
Gold Star mom, Patty Elliott, really appreciate your joining us.
And today is Father's Day, the perfect time to show Dad just how much he means to you. And what better gift to give him than helping him stay healthy? Here are 5 health tips.
It's not always on top of the priority list. Fathers and father figures may need a push to focus on their health.
Men in society are expected to be the leaders of their family units, to be strong, not to complain, endure pain, work through it.
Dr. Edward Cartman with El Camino Health in California says stress can take a toll, but there are 5 tips men can use to optimize their health. First, get regular checkups and get screened at each stage of life.
So in their 20s and 30s, be screening for testicular cancers. When they get into their 40s and 50s, start looking at heart disease. In 60s and 70s, looking at cancer risks and screenings.
Next, find ways to manage stress. Cartman says regular exercise is a perfect stress reliever, and it can also help with the third goal, maintaining a healthy body weight. That can help lower risk of heart disease, diabetes, joint pain, sleep apnea, and more. Fourth, prioritize getting good quality sleep, a key component for both mental and physical health. And finally, Cartman says to make sure your testosterone levels are balanced.
It's an equivalent hormone to estrogen in women. It plays a lot of similar vital roles in terms of bone health, energy, mood, muscle health, just a variety of things. There's studies now coming out showing that a healthy testosterone level is related with a longer lifespan.
Following on from that, Dr. Cartman says testosterone can play into longevity by keeping people moving as they age and preventing falls and fractures so that continuing an exercise program is still possible. All right, well, that's all for today's news. Thank you for tuning in. Stay with us for NTD News Evening News at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 Pacific.